This person even invented a job. I think that is so wonderful when you cannot just follow the jobs. I'm the CEO of so and so. I'm the coach of so so. I'm a writer of the book. But when you can invent your own job, that is great. So Eric is he created a job, creative coach, and he is a creative coach because he created that job. Happy to see you, Eric.
Great to see you, Olga. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much. You wrote 50 books, Eric, and your latest book is called Redesign Your Mind. Can you be so kind? Tell me, please. Now, everybody telling about reinvent your life, reinvent your habit. And now you wrote a book, Redesign Your Mind. But actually, nowadays, especially in COVID times, everybody is trying to redesign. We have to redesign our life, fortunately or unfortunately. Tell me, please, how to redesign our mind.
It's based on a certain metaphor, the idea of the room that is your mind, an actual place that we go when we think. And I think we can visualize that place. We could, if we had a lot of time, we could talk about how visualizations work, but I think that people understand that they can see things in their mind's eye. And so if you go to the room that is your mind, you can see how it's decorated, what's in there, and what it needs. For example, you might notice that there's a bed of nails in there, that there's a very uncomfortable bed that you're always lying on. Well, you can instantly throw it out and replace it with an easy chair. It's really a metaphor for how to change the place where our thoughts originate rather than just try to fight with our thoughts and change individual thoughts. Some of the ideas that connect to this idea of redesigning your mind is to install windows in that room so that a breeze blows through, because most people are thinking repetitive, stale thoughts that don't serve them. So just picturing an open window with a breeze blowing through can help you get rid of some of that repetitive thinking. You can include a calmness switch so that the second you walk into the room, you flip that switch and you feel calmer. So the book has maybe 50 or 60 of these ideas, these visualizations, ways to picture your mind as a place and then actually change that place. One very simple one is just to paint the walls a bright color. Most people are in a gloomy place in their mind. And just the simple idea of painting the walls of your mind a brighter color can help. This isn't a cure-all for everything that ails us, but it's a simple tactic for changing the way we think.
So, Eric, you recommend, I like this idea about opening windows. I want to understand it. So, you recommend that you open the windows in the room where you're sitting mentally. You just visualize, or you physically going and opening all the windows in the flat?
It's all mental. Some of the things have a physical similarity, things that we could do physically, but it's much easier to do things in the mind's eye in a split second than in real life. So this is all mental. These are visualizations. But I think one feels different by having done them. Actually, you feel different. So, yes, you can open a window for real. Here we have our California wildfires, and we can't really open our windows because there's too much smoke. But we can always open the window in our mind, and not just that, but we can decide what to look out the window, what's out there, what's the vista out the window. Maybe we need a calming picture, something to look out the window, a lake or the sea or a forest. These are all, your listeners or viewers may not know where the idea of visualizations came from, but it began as a medical cure, as a medical helper for cancer patients. Cancer patients were invited to picture their healthy cells defeating their unhealthy cells. And they discovered, medical researchers discovered that that really helped them physically. There was a real mind body connection, that by visualizing healthy cells fighting their cancer cells, they actually felt better emotionally and did better physically. So there's a good long history of how visualizations work. And this is one variation on how visualizations can work.
So, Eric, you mean that it's good for people who are sick, for people who are mentally sick, for people who are afraid, just to visualize something good? Let's say we can open the windows, we can see that we are healthy, we can see that our healthy cells are curing the cells that are defeating by some illness. So it's a very broad thing. Okay, that's very good. Visualization. Can you give one more two tips from your book? Or even from your mind, because if you wrote 50 books, I understand that your mind is always working. You never stop. You're full of ideas. What are other ideas we can use to redesign our mind?
What we wear in there. So we walk in, and metaphorically, we can remove our heavy overcoat and get rid of some heaviness and some gloominess. We can put on our superhero cape and feel more powerful. We don't have to actually go out and buy new clothes. We can visualize ourselves in the kinds of outfits we want. And we know that how we dress affects how we feel. So we can do all of that visually. And we can change what I call our indwelling style. Everybody has a kind of style internally. They come to their mind room and they're already angry, or they're already critical, or they're already depressed, they're already something, because that's the characteristic style of their particular mind room. So one kind of visualization is visualizing yourself no longer operating from that style, not being angry. Sounds simple, but most people don't try such tactics. This is a variation on cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy focuses on the thoughts, not the thinking. And this kind of visualization focuses on the place where the thoughts arise. And I think it's actually more powerful and more effective than working with the thoughts themselves. Makes sense that if we change the place where the thoughts come from, that all of our thoughts will be new and better and different.
Absolutely. Let's say if we think that the world is full of opportunities and we are young and we are healthy and we can do it very easily, and there is a lot of everything. The ocean is full. It's full of ideas, full of money, full of life, full of love. Of course, out of that characteristic and out of that situation, it's much easier to live, to smile, and to connect with people. It goes without saying. I would like to ask you, yes, tell me, please.
I was just going to say that what you just said is true. In my metaphor, you would actually go to the room that is your mind and have a corner of the room set aside for that kind of powerful visualizing. That is, it's more than just sort of saying that you can see it. It's actually going there to see it. For instance, you probably know that there's a speaker's corner in Hyde Park in London where historically people could get up and say anything. Well, we need that same kind of speaker's corner in our own mind where we don't censor ourselves, where we get up and say anything we want to say to ourselves, because most people are preventing themselves from saying true things to themselves, called denial. So
Mhm.
having a literal place in your mind room where you get to go and speak your truth is a very powerful idea. So many people are not speaking their truth.
You mean
And
that we are even afraid to say the truth, not to somebody. We are not even afraid to tell the truth
to
to the
ourselves.
boss. We are afraid to tell the truth to ourselves. So we are escaping, we are running away from our thoughts. Yeah, that's
That's
what we
right.
are doing.
So much of what goes on in our mind has to do with self-censorship. It's one thing to not say things in the world. There may be safety reasons why we don't want to say something in the world. It may be dangerous to speak, but it should be at least safe for us to speak to ourselves. That should feel safe. And
Eric,
we
tell me
don't,
please, are you agree with that technique that Japanese people have, that if they hate somebody, even at work, they can take a pillow And imagine that this pillow is their boss, and during lunch break, they will come to that pillow and they will start hitting it. And then they will say, okay, I'm released, I'm in good mood, as if they talk to their boss and they feel good. Is it a good tactic, or it's wrong in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's a good tactic. In my opinion, we should be allowed to feel angry internally if we're angry. There are lots of things to be upset about in the real world and to be angry about. And I don't think we want to suppress those feelings. Again, we may not want to act in the world because that may be too dangerous, but we should at least have permission to have our feelings. We know that squashing our feelings down hurts our mental health. It is not emotionally good to not honor our own feelings. So I think it's a good tactic. I think we get to feel angry if that's what we're feeling.
So, your tactic is to visualize something good, not to be afraid of your thoughts. At least be true to yourself and tell what you think. So, at least tell it
Yes.
to yourself. Don't go into the square, because let's say if you don't like the president and you start shouting to
Yep.
everybody, in some
Yep.
countries it's very dangerous, especially if you
That's
go to
right.
Afghanistan, Taliban. It may end up very, very tragically. So
That's
don't
right.
do like that, because maybe then they will say Eric and Olga is giving a very wrong advice for people. No, no,
Exactly.
no. But to yourself, you can tell it.
And also, I think there's something sort of joyful and imaginative about this idea of going to your mind room and redecorating it. It's actually fun, and people are not having that much fun. So to have a tactic that actually helps you and that is also fun, that's a double good thing. Also, most people have their imagination curtailed in childhood because we're supposed to, learn facts for the tests and not really be imaginative. And this is a way for a creative person to be imaginative. This is a very useful and self-friendly way to be imaginative. So for your listeners, viewers who are feeling sort of stuck in a lack of imagination, this is an interesting way to become more imaginative by going in there and imagining the ideal place, the place you'd really like to live, the mind you'd really like to have.
Eric, tell me please, the books like Harry Potter, because in a way, these magic people, they are doing it. And I think they're very creative, because you can take a magic stick, you can do something, you can show something, and it will happen. So you think we can use something from these magic books?
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if this just comes to mind. I'm not sure it's magic, but one of the visualizations that I suggest to become a calmer person, to deal with anxiety, is to shake up a snow globe. Do you know what a snow globe is? It's a glass item that when you shake it, it's as if there's snow inside, and
Yes,
then the
yes,
snow
yes.
and the
It's very
snow
beautiful.
settles.
Actually, I love it.
Yeah. So as the snow settles, you can settle. So it's the idea of using the snow globe as a kind of visual representation of how to settle, how to become calmer. As the snow settles, you settle. So I'm not sure if that's magical, but it just came to mind as a kind of beautiful sort of Christmas
Metaphor.
image.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful thing. You created a new job of a creative coach. How come? How it even come to your mind that you will be a creative coach?
well, I started writing a long time ago, 50 years ago. So I was a writer first, but I wasn't making enough money as a writer, so I became a therapist. But I very quickly didn't believe in the therapy model. I didn't believe in the idea of mental disorders the way it was described in therapy. So I was working as a therapist to creative and performing artists, but I didn't like the idea of therapy. And so I started shifting toward consulting. This was before coaching was even an idea. This is a long time ago, well more than 30 years ago.
I'm sorry to ask, how old are you, Eric?
I'll be 75 in January.
This is bravo what you are doing, because what you're doing, inventing such a job, even very, very young people, they don't have that mind to do it. So I think that you are very brave to, to catch them up, and even you are quicker than them. That is amazing what you're doing. Bravo.
Brave may be one way to say it, but for me, I was born right after World War II, and the idea of resistance fighters was a very important idea to me. The folks who fought the Nazis, um, all of that meant something to me growing up. And I've felt like a resistance fighter my whole life, that there were lots of things to point out that were wrong in the world. And so I'm not sure if it's bravery or this or rebellion, just rebelliousness against things that I don't believe are right. And I didn't believe that therapy was right. I believed that coaching was actually more effective and a better idea than therapy. I believe that therapy is based on a certain kind of fraud about how mental disorders are characterized, but that's a whole nother subject. But at any rate, how I got into creativity coaching was that I moved from therapy to coaching. I was probably the first creativity coach, and then I've been training creativity coaches for the last 20 or 25 years and writing books on different aspects of the creative life: creativity and depression, creativity and anxiety, creativity and addiction, all the real things that we face, as not smiley face things, but the real things that we face: difficulties in the marketplace, difficulties with our own personality, and difficulties in doing the work. It's hard to write a great symphony, it's hard to write a great novel. We could use one of your greats, Tolstoy, just to picture how hard it is to do this work. So he writes War and Peace, and he writes Anna Karenina, and he doesn't write any more novels for 40 years. He goes into this deep depression, asking himself, how can I follow these two novels with anything interesting? So even for the greats, this is a hard life. And so I've been trying to make it easier for creatives for all these many years.
Eric, tell me please, for creative people, of course, they're very sensitive. They are very different. They are flying in the skies. A lot of them are very romantic people. And of course, it's very difficult to find this creativity, energy, and money because you need to pay the bills, you need to help the family, but at the same time, you want to create something unique. Uh, if you want to give me, because our interview is going to an end, some 1 2 tips to people who are even afraid to be creative now. They think, oh, this is not the time for creativity, we are in COVID times, everything is so frightening, blah blah blah, I'm afraid to create. What you will recommend them to start creating again as they managed to do when they were young?
I want to give a slightly complicated answer. First, I don't believe that there is a singular purpose to life. I believe there are life purposes in the plural. There are the things we decide matter to us. So for me, creativity is one life purpose among many. It's not the only thing we need to do, but it's an important thing that many of us need to do. So point A is that most folks have never identified their life purposes for themselves. And even making that list might be very interesting. So you make your list, you discover that creativity is on that list. It's not the only thing on the list, but it's one of the things on your list. Maybe other things are service and career and activism and parenting. There'll be lots of things on that list, but creativity will be one. So let's say you then say to yourself, okay, I see that it's important to me. How do I actually get to it? The short answer is first thing each day for 20 minutes. As a practical matter, as a tactical matter, the most important thing that a would be creative person can do is to take a small sized goal like 20 minutes a day, or 10 minutes a day, or 5 minutes a day, and do it in a daily way. Whatever it is, work on your novel, or start painting, or start your business, or whatever it is that your creative outlet is going to be. Start small, but make it a daily practice. That's why my last book before this one was called The Power of Daily Practice,
Yes.
because it's so important to do things in a regular way. Creative people know, they may not know this consciously, but when I say it, they recognize it. They know that if they start to miss 2 or 3 days, months go by and years go by, and they lose a lot of time. So the most important thing to say to a would-be creative person is to start small, but be regular. Come to it every day. Once you start coming to it every day, it will grow in you. I can guarantee that whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's your novel or your business, by virtue of you attending to it every day, it will grow in you. It'll become more real, and you'll begin to understand the process better. Most people don't understand the creative process for real. They don't understand how many mistakes they have to make, how many messes they have to make, how many dead ends they'll go. They don't, they want a guarantee that it's going to work before they start. They want to not begin without a guarantee.
They
There's no
want to be Van
guarantee.
Gogh. They want to be Picasso. They want that this picture will be sold for $1 million, that they will be, like in the Bibles, that they will be in encyclopedia, and whatever book they will do, it will be in Tretchikov gallery. I understand. Yes, of
That's
course.
right. And they don't realize things like Van Gogh. So we know that Van Gogh was about to commit suicide after he was fired as being a pastor. First, he was religious and he tried to live the life of a pastor and he was fired. And he didn't know what to do next and he was going to kill himself. And then he remembered that he liked painting. But here's the interesting thing, rather than just start painting, he spent a whole year just making marks because he knew that he didn't have the skill set to make the paintings that he had in his mind's eye. He very smartly and bravely went slowly and spent a long time just trying to figure out how to make a cypress tree in 3 moves or a pine tree in 2 moves. This is all by way of saying he knew intuitively that the process demanded that his skill set grow before he tried to do the work he wanted to do. Most people want to jump over building their skill set right to some masterpiece. And that's not going to happen. We have to put in the work.
Eric, it's very strange to me that the way of creating a painting or creating a movie or creating a poem or creating, resemble the way how Olympic champions are training. I don't know why, but really it's the same thing. I mean, there is a lot of boring things. My daughter is a golf player and she's the champion. She was the champion of Russia among young students. And the way how she's playing every day, 5 6 hours, this boring golf, it was unbelievable. Like
Yep,
thousands of shots. And then, of course, she comes to the competition, and of course, she's becoming a champion. But nobody sees the way how every day you are sweating,
that's
and
right.
it's, that's the way how it's resembling. But I think that is great to do it, as you said, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, if you're very lazy, five
Yep.
minutes,
Would
20
be would
minutes, it will be
would
better.
would would be creative people get hung up on that word inspiration. I'm not gonna do any creative work unless I'm inspired, but that's a big mistake. And Tchaikovsky has a great quote. He said, "I'm inspired every fifth day, but I only get that fifth day if I show up the other four."
No, that is really, that is true. That is absolutely true. I think, if to summarize our talk today, that we should have discipline. This is discipline to ourselves, and this discipline can make us creative. And it's the same in business. Even it's the same in relationship. Even it's the same in sport. It's very strange, but sports reminds me about creativity, because
Yep.
then if you do it every day, you will become a master. Do you like it or not? Because this 20
Yeah.
minutes for a year, it becomes a very big period of time.
Let me add one thing to that. Pavarotti has a quote I like, which is, "People say I'm disciplined, but it's not discipline, it's devotion, and there's a big difference." So I think we're talking about two things, discipline, but also devotion, some place of love. There's got to be some passion and desire. I don't think discipline alone permits us to do the things we need to do because the work is too arduous. I think there's something we have to love there. And I think what it is for creative people is that experience that they had when they were 5 years old or 6 years old or 7 years old, sitting in a corner of the room reading a book or watching a movie or listening to music. Creatives fell in love as children with something, with some medium or another, and they're spending their whole lives connected to that love. And now they want to share that love or make that love or be love. So I think that's a long-winded way of saying I think it's both discipline and devotion that allows us to do the work we want to do.
This is so wonderful, Eric. Thank you so much. For me personally, you give me a lot of very useful tips that will help me to do good movies. And I'm very, very thankful to you. And I wish you good luck, definitely good health, to stay that positive and to run in front of very young people, because I think definitely you're a great champion and you're winning a lot of us. Thank you so much for being with